The U.S. Mexico Futures Forum is meant to bring some creative thinkers from both countries together to think about the relationship between the United States and Mexico in some creative, future-looking ways. There are really two main goals for the forum. One is to take issues that are clearly at the top of the U.S.-Mexico agenda and to try to look at them in a fresh way. The second goal is to take issues that ought to be receiving attention and aren't, and to try to put them on the agenda. Renewable energy and climate change is a critical area that links to issues from new jobs to food security. It deserves far more attention and action than it receives. The stakes are irreversible.
Climate change is not just an environmental issue and should not be treated as such. The fact that in Cancun we were able to develop the social, the political, the economic dimension of the problem, to get the involvement of different agencies and actors is quite relevant, because if we continue to deal with it just as an environmental question and we just focus on reducing emissions, we will be missing the opportunity of a real transformation of the economic project as a whole.
Public health, energy security, and climate change are different issues. They have different political constituencies. They have different policy tools. But ultimately, if adopted, they will have the same overlapping policy results.
To feed all people in the world now, we need not only this planet, but we need now another planet and a half. Another planet and a half to feed the people now. So to speak about energy, climate change, is a very profound issue, very, very profound.
Security is at the top of the agenda, but it needs new perspectives and bold initiatives. Sergio Fajardo, the former mayor of Medellin, Colombia, emphasizes the urgency of reaching young people before they are sucked into the narco universe.
We've seen over the last few years many of these organized crime groups, the drug cartels as they're often called, teaming up with local gangs. In business terms you might call this outsourcing. And part of outsourcing of the activities of these organizations has brought the criminals probably in greater contact with the population, increasing then the opportunities for violence and the actual violence and deaths that we've seen. And we've also seen these organizations move more and more into other businesses, sort of diversify their economic model. So while drugs do continue to be the biggest part of their revenues, we've seen them move into local extortion, into human smuggling across the border, into kidnapping within Mexico, and into contraband, a whole host of different activities.
If you don't look at this door, these entrance doors, and ask yourself every single day, why is this, for example, in Mexico today, 15-year-old kids who are killing people, sicarios, why they are in there, then you are never going to solve this problem. What we would like to do is that this kid doesn't get inside. Now, we have learned in Medellin and in Colombia many lessons about this world. What happens here, and I'm going to mention some. But I want to stop that kid, as I say, from going through that door.
I just really want to emphasize, thank you, Sergio, about the spillover into Central America. I mean, we have talked very little about Central America, and we all know that if we have and the Caribbean, we all that if we have a difficult time in Mexico, is because we have weak institutions. But I mean, just think about Guatemala, Honduras, and the place I vividly remember still that when President Calderon came to the inauguration of Laura Chinchilla, middle of last year, and what she had to say is, I'm sorry, President Calderon, but the gain for Mexico in terms of against organized crime has been the loss of Central America.
The role of China in the global economy has received plenty of attention, but needs longer-range perspectives and new approaches. Clyde Prestowitz starts with Intel in China, and Maria Echeveste talks about the importance of middle-class jobs in the new global economy.
The operating cost of production is lower in the U.S. than in China. The quality will be better in the U.S. than in China. The productivity higher in the U.S. than in China. So what's going on? And two things are going on. One is that, maybe three things. One is that over the years, Intel's customers, HP, Dell, Apple, have all moved their assembly to Asia, largely to China. Second thing that's going on is that every time an Intel executive goes to China, all he or she hears is, Mr. or Mrs. Executive, when are you going to put a plant in China? You know, you have to prove that you're a good friend of China. You're dedicated to building China's future. And what do I mean when I say you have to prove? Well, you know, there's a little unspoken threat here. It is, hey, look, this is not a society of rule of law, you know. I mean, if you don't put a plant here, well, you know, things could happen, right? But we have a carrot. How much did you say that factory costs? $7 billion? How would you like us to give you $2 billion? Which is about what the Chinese gave Intel as a financial incentive to build that plant.
We fail constantly when we talk about the fact that the manufacturing jobs are, or the low wage, what used to be middle class jobs, and all that we have in this country are retail, low wage, minimum wage. We never say that we actually need to make those jobs good middle class jobs just the way manufacturing jobs were. And the only thing that made those manufacturing jobs middle class jobs were strong unions, not 100% unionized, but critical union density that lifted. And somehow our absence, I would just argue that as we put these pieces together, if we don't add these various elements, we're not going to begin to change the narrative or have any chance of changing that narrative.
The Forum has done some pretty remarkable things. By being in existence for a decade, it's built a framework of respect and openness. Within that framework, there are a lot of different ideas. There's never a move towards consensus. There is a move towards understanding, rethinking, presenting fresh perspectives, and that remarkably has worked over time. So it's a space where ideas and the realities of the world in which we live come together.